So the idea is to work with living things. So there was a artist who's Vincent van Gogh, and he said the most artistic thing is to love. And so like when I do certain things, I find that the most rewarding always is the ones when I work with the living, instead of, it's like on the level of idolatry when you create something that has no life. And this is the thing that makes God's creation different from everyone else, in that we can never create anything with life. We can only use our life to create that which doesn't have life. Otherwise, it's like to reproduce, which is to have children. And this isn't even in that we create them, if that makes sense. Otherwise, we can't do anything that contains the life, or the living, the force of life. And that's the highest expression of our made in the image of God, and that God created us in His image. And we can't really create anything in life, with life, except from our family members that are children, or something. And it's not even a process of creation. It just comes from love, or in certain sad circumstances, other things. But it's just a fascinating thing, because I destroyed many things that I had because they were dead. And it was as if they didn't have life. It might have been a testimony to, not a testimony, but like, a testimony, an evidence of my life, the things that I'd done. But they were lifeless, and so this is another thing, is to eternal life. The power of God unto salvation is the knowledge of the death, burial, resurrection of Jesus, that gives not only life here, but eternal life, which is of another dimension. It's not incorruptible, whereas everything here is subject to decay, corruption, could be burnt with fire, or molded with mildew, eaten by moths, or what's another thing? So it's just that the life that Jesus gives is on a higher level, because it's incorruptible, and it's not subject to flesh decay. It's spiritual, and this is this was the highest thing. So when I create something, because I was going to do a sculpture, and then whenever I do it, I say, but I've done it already, you know what I mean? And it doesn't have life. And so I think as an artist, the dog was burping. Which is like that, the dog is alive and it can burp, that's amazing. Whereas I could never produce anything that has life. They were like snails, and I was filling up something with water today, and then they were like floating all over in the water, so I had to get them out. And it's just like when I thought about doing the sculpture, I always get discouraged because I know there won't be life in it, and to serve that which is not, or to spend time on that which is not living, compared to spending time with those who are alive, going out to the street to speak with people, carrying animals, or children or elderly people. It's on another level. I think it's more, and plants. I mean, plants are so living. And yet God did have artisans and stuff like that in the Old Testament, but the New Testament, the temple is His body. And so this is a fascinating thing, because the temple in the Old Testament was beautiful. It was, if you read how the artists went about building it, quite magnificent in its description. As an artist, I thoroughly enjoyed reading those chapters, because I wanted to do a model of it, or I just wanted to get a mind picture of this temple as a symbolic thing, and then Jesus saying his body is a temple, and the preciousness and the beauty of that. It's just strange, just the comparison between a building and a body, and the fact that it's living, and then the life that Jesus has is incorruptible. And it says that there is no temple in heaven, because God is their temple. And it's just this, God is light, and in him there's no darkness, there's no corruption, it's life and it's living. So yeah, many things I find. I was doing some carving, and I stopped because I cut my hand very badly, and I think it was a blessing, because the carving of lifeless images, unless it was to preach, and yet our lives, in many ways, if they are lifeless, so to say, that we can preach through our life, and this is where my thing has gone. My focus has gone skew, in the sense that I've had to have years to just let God deal with emotional problems with me from some things I've suffered through, and know that His grace can cover my behavior, my reaction to those hard things. But you can't, because we are alive and we do suffer, and sometimes it's real. You can't just dismiss it, and that God can forgive both me for my bad response and those who did bad things, if I just remember Him. But anyway, so my focus is that how do I, as a living creation, not as a sculpture of God, portray or communicate eternal life to others, in the sense of through my life, through my living out in His creation, stuff like that. So it's a funny thing, but anyway, I was gonna do sculptures and stuff like that, and I think I've become more vitalized again, in the sense of I was very bashed down, and I had to breathe, and God has given me space to breathe, and I just hope that I'm more courageous now to go out again and just go meet people and share with them about Jesus and from other cultures and stuff like that. Because there's so much ignorance, biblical ignorance, like I had, and I've taken time now to just study, just listen. I listen to audio Bible just to study the Bible and to try and know how it relates to me, in this time, so many years after Christ, and how it could communicate better to other people, so that they don't either be led astray by false religious Christian organizations, and that they can know how they fit into the big picture, basically, of salvation and why Jesus died for them, in their context, in their culture, stuff like that. So anyway, I don't really want to babble too much, but we are the living creation. We're not supposed to worship one another. We're not supposed to idolize one another. We're supposed to live for God as His creation, living and in a spiritual life, a connection with Him. It's just this thought that I was having, but I don't have any more thought on it. So sculptures, because time, it takes time. Even the tracks I'm doing are so fun to do, because I'm making little books, whatever. But God doesn't always work with our what do you call that? Mechanisms. He's got another way to work. He works in a very mysterious way if we're willing to let Him use us. He has a plan, I think, that is greater than our little plan, and that's what is so interesting. But anyway, so yeah, it's not about us and what we do for Him, it's how we allow Him to use us for Himself and for His glory and for His kingdom. And like the artist said, the best thing to do is to love. The most artistic thing to do is to love, basically. And we know what love is because God sent His Son to die on a cross for us. It's His here, and we know what love is. Not that we love God, but that God gave His Son for us to be a propitiation for our sins, which is to atone. But anyway, I'm done now.